The lot was empty when I crossed it, 6:43 late March, and the visitor center had been locked up for almost an hour. My left knee wasn't cooperating. Neither were my ribs on that side, the ones I'd cracked 3 weeks back on a recovery job I never filed paperwork for. Couldn't. The thing I'd been sent to retrieve had turned out to be heavier than briefed and a lot more interested in staying put. I'd gotten it to the pickup point eventually, but I'd also gotten slammed into a limestone shelf hard enough that breathing wrong still felt like someone was testing my bones with a ball-peen hammer. I didn't go to the ER, didn't call in sick, just wrapped the ribs myself with an ace bandage I bought at the Walgreens in Cave City and kept showing up in my maintenance uniform like nothing happened. That was the deal. You don't make noise. You don't draw attention. You show up, you do the work, and you keep your mouth shut about what the work actually involves. Most people at Mammoth Cave knew me as a maintenance tech. I had the uniform, the boots, the heavy keyring that jingled on my belt and opened half the doors in the park. I fixed busted lighting rigs in the tour routes, patched trail erosion, swapped batteries in emergency beacon stations, that kind of thing. On paper, I worked for the National Park Service. In practice, I worked for a unit inside the Department of the Interior that didn't have a name, didn't have a website, and didn't officially exist. The job was simple, straightforward even. I found things that shouldn't be real. I tagged them. I moved them to pickup points before anyone else noticed. Then I went back to changing light bulbs and pretending I didn't know what a retrieval lockbox looked like. It paid okay. Not great, but okay. The health insurance was garbage, which I guess made sense given that I couldn't exactly file a claim for injuries sustained while hauling an animate stone fragment out of a collapsed side passage. Mostly I did it because I was good at it, and because the alternative was going back to a job where nothing I did mattered and nothing I saw made my skin crawl. I'd take the crawling over the boredom. The limp wasn't obvious unless you were looking for it. I kept my gait even, my weight balanced. The ribs were the bigger problem. Every time I inhaled too deep, I got a hot stripe of pain right under my left shoulder blade. I'd learned to breathe shallow. Didn't talk much anyway. I angled toward the main entrance, keys already in hand. The visitor center was a low brick building with big windows that reflected the parking lot lights in flat yellow squares. During the day it was loud, full of families and retirees buying tickets and asking where the bathrooms were. After hours, it was just dark glass and locked doors. I liked it better empty. That was when I saw Willow. She was standing just outside the main doors, hands in the pockets of her ranger jacket, shoulders square. Willow Mercado, 31, sandy blonde hair pulled back tight, sharp blue eyes that didn't miss much. She'd been at Mammoth for 4 years, maybe 5. We'd worked together before. Not often, but enough that she knew what I really did, and I knew she wouldn't ask questions she didn't want answered. She saw me coming and straightened up. Didn't wave, didn't smile. Just waited. I closed the distance each step measured. My knee complained. I ignored it. "Leo," she said. "Willow. Got a minute?" I stopped a few feet away, close enough to talk without raising my voice. "Depends." She pulled a phone from her jacket pocket, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward me. A photo. Missing person flyer. White guy, maybe mid-30s, wearing a UK hoodie and a nervous smile. The kind of picture families give to the police because it's the most recent one they have. "Daniel Kress," Willow said. "Last seen 4 days ago near the historic entrance. Told his girlfriend he was going to check out the trail. Never came back." She swiped. Another photo. Different person. Woman this time, older, gray hair, glasses. Rita Wolf. Last seen 6 days ago. Same area. Swipe. Third photo. Younger guy, early 20s, beanie and a scraggly beard. Mason Tully, 8 days ago. Historic entrance again. I looked at the phone, then at her. Search and rescue? Ran for 2 days on the first one. Found nothing. Dogs tracked to the entrance, then lost the scent. Lost it how? Just gone, like they walked up to the cave and evaporated. She pocketed the phone. Second case, same thing. Third case, same thing. Dogs hit the entrance and stop. I shifted my weight off the bad knee. You run a grid? Twice. We checked the main routes, the off-trail areas, the sinkholes. Nothing. No gear, no tracks. No sign anyone went into the backcountry at all. So why are you talking to me? Willow's jaw tightened. She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a clear evidence bag. Inside was a flashlight. Standard issue, black aluminum, the kind you could buy at any outdoor store. The lens was cracked. The casing was dented near the battery cap. Found this yesterday, she said. Maintenance crew was clearing a sinkhole drain about half a mile from the historic entrance. It was wedged in the grate. I took the bag. The flashlight looked like it had been dropped from a height or thrown. The crack in the lens spiderwebbed out from a central impact point. I turned it over. There was a sticker on the side, mostly scraped off. I could just make out part of a name written in Sharpie. Cress. Belongs to the first guy, I said. Yeah. I handed it back. Still doesn't explain why you're here. She didn't take the bag. Instead, she pulled out a second one. This one held something older. Dented metal, blackened with age and corrosion. It took me a second to place it. Carbide lamp. The kind miners used back in the day, before electric lights. It had a small reservoir for water and another for calcium carbide. You mixed them, got acetylene gas, lit it, and you had a flame. Simple tech. Reliable. Also hadn't been standard equipment in about 80 years. Found this in the same drain, Willow said. Same grate, right next to the flashlight. I stared at the lamp. The metal was pitted and worn, but the shape was intact. Someone had maintained it, used it. That doesn't make sense, I said. No, Willow agreed. It doesn't. I looked past her toward the dark line of trees that marked the edge of the park. The historic entrance was about a quarter-mile south, down a paved path that tourists walked every day. It was one of the original ways into the cave system, used for decades before the modern tour routes were established. There was still a narrow service door there, locked and marked authorized personnel only. Most visitors didn't even notice it. Dogs lost the scent where? I asked. At the service door. The one by the historic entrance. Yeah. Anyone check inside? Maintenance did a sweep. Didn't find anything. I turned the evidence bag over in my hand. The carbide lamp shifted inside the plastic. You want me to go down there? I want you to figure out what the hell is happening before the superintendent finds out we've got 3 missing persons and 0 leads. Willow's voice stayed level, but there was an edge underneath. If this turns into a media event, we're done. The park gets swarmed, we get investigated, and whatever's actually going on down there gets buried under a pile of bureaucrats and reporters. Or it gets exposed, I said. You think that's better? I didn't. Exposure meant panic. Panic meant lockdown. Lockdown meant someone higher up the chain would come in, classify the whole thing, and disappear anyone who knew too much. I'd seen it happen once. Didn't want to see it again. What's the timeline? I asked. 48 hours, maybe less. Families are already pushing for a bigger search. If we don't give them something soon, they'll go to the press. I handed the bag back. She took it this time, but she didn't put it away, just held it, waiting. I thought about the job, the real job, the one that didn't come with backup or hazard pay or any guarantee I'd walk out the same way I walked in. I thought about the last recovery, the cracked ribs, the thing that shouldn't have been alive but was. I thought about the 3 people in those photos, the ones who'd walked up to a cave entrance and vanished. I'll need access to the service door, I said, and I'll need you to keep everyone else out of that section for the next 2 days. Done. If I find something, I'm calling it in my way, not yours. Willow hesitated, then nodded. Fine. And if this goes sideways, you don't know what I was doing down there. Leo, I never know what you're doing down there. I almost smiled. Didn't, but almost. She handed me the 2 evidence bags, the flashlight and the carbide lamp. I took them, felt the weight. Not much, just enough to matter. Anything else? I asked. Yeah, Willow said. Be careful. Whatever's taking people, it's not leaving bodies. I knew exactly how ugly quiet fixes could get when things that shouldn't exist were involved. I'd pulled enough impossible objects out of enough dark places to know that the worst part wasn't the thing itself. It was what the thing did when it realized you were there. I'll keep that in mind, I said. Willow stepped back, hands returning to her pockets. Doors unlocked. I'll keep the patrols clear until you're done. Appreciated. She turned and walked toward her truck, parked at the far end of the lot. I watched her go, then looked down at the evidence bags in my hand. 2 objects. One modern, one ancient. Both pulled from the same drain. Both connected to people who didn't come back. I limped toward the visitor center doors, keys jingling on my belt, ribs aching with every breath. Just another job. That's what I told myself. I'd stopped believing it a long time ago. I didn't sleep much. The ribs made it hard to find a position that didn't feel like someone was pressing thumbs into my side. And every time I started drifting off, I'd see that carbide lamp sitting on my kitchen counter next to the flashlight, both in their evidence bags, both pulled from the same drain. By the time morning hit, I'd already made the decision. I wasn't going in alone. That's not how I usually work. Most of the retrieval jobs, I go in solo because that's the contract, and because bringing someone else in means explaining things I can't explain. But this wasn't a retrieval. Not yet. This was 3 people gone and 2 objects that didn't belong together, and a service door that had been unlocked for me like an invitation. I needed someone who knew the cave system, someone who wouldn't ask the wrong questions, someone I had leverage on. Chandler Edwards owed me money. Not a lot. $1,500, but enough that when I texted him at 7:30 that morning and said I had cash work if he wanted it, he wrote back in under a minute. Yeah, man, what kind of work? I kept it simple. Told him I had a pest control contract, couple hours, cash same day. Didn't mention the park. Didn't mention the missing people or the evidence bags or Willow or any of it. He sent back a thumbs up and asked when. 9:30, visitor center lot. Bring your work gear. Chandler's a seasonal guide. 27, tall, built like someone who climbs and hikes for a living. He's good at his job, enthusiastic. Talks too much when he's nervous. He fell on an off-trail hike last summer, split his palm open on a rock and fractured his wrist. No insurance. I covered the bill at the Cave City ER because he was panicking about losing the job, and I figured it'd be useful to have someone owe me. That's me. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. He showed up right on time, driving a beat-up Tacoma with a UK sticker half peeled off the bumper. I was waiting by my truck, leaning against the tailgate because standing straight still pulled at the ribs. Chandler got out wearing a hoodie, cargo pants, boots that had seen some miles. He had a headlamp clipped to his belt and a backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hey," he said, grinning. "What are we killing?" "Don't know yet," I said. Willow asked me to check the back corridors. Something's been getting into the service areas, probably rats. "Rats," Chandler repeated. He looked excited. "Like cave rats?" "Just rats. Still cool." I handed him $200 in cash. 450s I'd pulled from the envelope I keep in my glove box for situations like this. He took it and didn't count it, just folded it into his pocket. "Thanks, man. This helps." "You're good for the rest?" I asked. He nodded fast. Yeah, I'm picking up extra shifts next month. I'll get you the rest by May." I didn't think he'd have it by May, but that was fine. I didn't need the money. I needed him here. "Let's go," I said. We walked across the lot toward the visitor center. It was early enough that the building was still closed to the public. Just a few NPS vehicles parked near the employee entrance. The sky was overcast, flat gray light that made everything look washed out. Chandler kept pace beside me, talking. So Willow just called you? Or did maintenance put in a ticket? She called. Makes sense. She's good like that, really on top of stuff. He adjusted his backpack. Is she meeting us? Yeah. Cool. I haven't seen her in a couple weeks. She's still running those ridge patrols? Probably. Chandler didn't seem to notice I wasn't giving him much. He just kept going, already spinning the story in his head. I could tell. He had that energy, that thing people get when they think they're doing something they'll talk about later. It bugged me a little, but that's also why I brought him. He'd follow me in because he thought it'd be a good story. And if something went wrong, I wouldn't be the only one bleeding. Selfish, maybe. But I was tired. My knee hurt. My ribs hurt. And I didn't want to walk into that corridor alone. Willow was waiting by the side entrance near the staff offices. She had her ranger jacket zipped up and her hair pulled back, same as yesterday. She looked at Chandler, then at me. You brought help, she said. Yeah. She didn't argue, just nodded and pulled a key card from her pocket. Pearson's been asking questions. That stopped me. What kind of questions? Inventory, missing equipment. He came by yesterday afternoon with a clipboard and wanted to know if I'd signed out any emergency beacons or radios in the last 2 weeks. She swiped the key card and opened the door. I told him no. Did he believe you? Don't know. He smiled and said thanks and wrote something down. She held the door open and looked at me. He's the kind of guy who sets traps while acting helpful. I knew the type. Oscar Pearson, superintendent's office. 49, neat hair, managerial smile, always in a button-down that looked pressed even at the end of the day. I dealt with him twice before on maintenance tickets, and both times he'd asked questions that felt like he was cataloging my answers for later. He never pushed, never accused, just smiled and filed everything away. I didn't take anything, I said. I know, but he's watching. Willow stepped aside. Service corridors through the back. I'll swipe you in, but after that you're on your own. I've got Ridge Patrol at 11. Chandler glanced between us. Wait, is someone stealing stuff? No, I said. Just inventory audits. Happens every spring. That was a lie, but Chandler bought it. He nodded and followed me inside. The staff area smelled like coffee and old carpet. Willow led us down a hallway past the break room and a couple of offices with closed doors. At the end was another keycard reader next to a heavy metal door labeled Authorized Personnel Only. She swiped her card, and the lock clicked. This goes to the service corridor behind the historic tour route, she said. Stays locked from both sides. I'm logging this as a maintenance check, so if anyone asks, you were looking at the lighting grid. Got it, I said. She pushed the door open. Beyond it was concrete floor and dim utility lighting running along a low ceiling. The air smelled damp and mineral, the way it always does when you're close to the cave system. Willow looked at me one more time. Pearson's got eyes everywhere. Don't give him a reason to follow you. I won't. She handed me the key card. Bring it back when you're done. I took it and slipped it into my pocket. Chandler was already stepping through the door, headlamp in hand, looking around like he'd just walked into somewhere new and exciting. Willow met my eyes for a second. She didn't say anything else, didn't need to. I nodded and followed Chandler through. The door shut behind us with a heavy click. The corridor stretched ahead, concrete and stone and metal brackets holding up the ceiling. Utility lights every 20 feet, casting long shadows. I could hear the faint hum of ventilation somewhere deeper in. Chandler clipped his headlamp on and flicked it on even though the lights were working fine. This is cool, he said. I've never been back here. I didn't answer. I was already thinking about Pearson, about inventory audits and missing equipment and questions that felt like traps. About the fact that Willow had logged this as a maintenance check, which meant there was a record now, which meant if I found something and had to move it, Pearson would know I'd been here. That part bugged me. I'd worked hard to stay off his radar, done my retrievals quiet, logged my maintenance hours clean, kept my head down, but now I was walking into a back corridor with a seasonal guide and a key card that wasn't mine, carrying evidence bags in my jacket pocket that I wasn't supposed to have, chasing 3 missing people and 2 objects that didn't make sense. And Pearson was already watching. I kept walking. Chandler stayed close, his boots scraping on the concrete, his headlamp swinging across the walls. The corridor sloped down slightly, heading deeper into the cave system. I could feel the temperature drop, could feel the weight of the stone above us. I knew this route by heart. I'd been through here a dozen times on lighting repairs and beacon swaps, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like I was walking into something that was already waiting. The door clicked shut behind us and the shift hit me right away. That visitor center warmth just gone, replaced by wet stone, old concrete, and air that hadn't moved in hours, maybe days. My ribs didn't like the cold. I felt them tighten up on the left side where the wrap was doing most of the work. The corridor stretched ahead. Concrete floor, limestone walls close enough to touch on both sides, metal brackets every few feet holding the utility lights, 20-foot spacing, standard park setup. I'd walked this route probably 40 times doing lighting repairs and battery swaps, knew every bend. Felt different now, though. Chandler's headlamp swept across the walls even though the utility lights gave us plenty to see by. He was doing that thing people do when they get excited about being somewhere they're not supposed to be, looking around too much, touching things. "This is sick," he said. His voice bounced weird off the stone. "I've done like 50 tours and never been back here." I didn't answer. I was listening. Ventilation hum somewhere deeper in. Water drip. That was it. No footsteps. No voices. The corridor sloped down just a little, heading toward the historic route access points. Chandler kept talking. "Willow really thinks there's rats back here. Seems pretty clean for—" "Just keep moving," I said. He shut up for maybe 10 seconds. Then his boot scraped something and he stopped. I almost ran into him. My knee didn't appreciate the sudden shift in weight. "Whoa," Chandler said. He crouched down, headlamp aimed at the floor. "Dude, look." I stepped around him and saw what he was looking at. Drag marks in the mud. Not mud exactly. More like sediment buildup where moisture seeped through the limestone and left a thin layer of grit on the concrete. Maintenance was supposed to squeegee this stuff every few months, but it built up fast. The marks ran diagonal across the corridor. 2 parallel lines maybe 8 inches apart, scraped through the sediment down to clean concrete underneath, like someone dragged something heavy, or got dragged. Chandler stood up. "That's weird, right?" "Yeah. What do you think?" "Don't know." I stepped past the drag marks, eyes on the floor now. Willow said maintenance already swept through here and found nothing, but maintenance wasn't looking for this. They were looking for people, gear, obvious signs. This wasn't obvious. 10 feet past the drag marks, I saw the first footprint. I stopped, stared at it. Barefoot, human-shaped, pressed into the sediment with enough weight to leave a clear impression. No boot tread, no shoe sole pattern, just toes, ball, heel. Park visitors weren't supposed to be barefoot, ever. Health regs. And definitely not back here, in a restricted service corridor. "Is that a footprint?" Chandler was behind me again, headlamp shining over my shoulder. "Yeah." "Who the hell walks around back here barefoot?" I didn't answer because I was already seeing the next print, and the one after that. A line of them heading deeper into the corridor, spaced like someone walking at a normal pace. I crouched down next to the clearest print. My ribs complained, but I ignored them. Up close it looked worse. Human foot shape, yeah. 5 toes, arch, heel, but the proportions were off. The toes were too long. Not by much, just enough that my brain kept trying to correct what I was seeing. And the arch was wrong. Too pronounced, maybe, or too flat. I couldn't tell which. Just that it didn't sit right. It looked like something that had studied how human feet work and then tried to copy it. Got most of it right. Missed the details. "That's a weird-ass footprint," Chandler said. He sounded less excited now. More uncertain. I stood up. My knee protested. "Yeah. Like, that doesn't match any boot I've ever seen." "It's not a boot." "So someone's actually walking around barefoot back here?" Chandler shifted his weight. "That's like a safety violation or something." I didn't answer. I was following the prints with my eyes. They continued down the corridor in a straight line. Evenly spaced, deliberate. The drag marks had gone diagonal, chaotic. These were controlled, purposeful. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. "Come on," I said. We followed the prints. Chandler stayed close behind me now, not wandering off to look at brackets or wiring. His headlamp kept steady on the floor just ahead of my boots. The prints didn't deviate, didn't stumble or hesitate, just kept going deeper into the corridor where the temperature dropped another few degrees and the ventilation hum got louder. Then the lights flickered. Both of us stopped. The utility lights dimmed, brightened, dimmed again, held steady. Chandler said. "Is that normal?" "No. I thought you said there's no power routed back here." "There isn't." That was the problem. These were emergency lights, battery-powered, LED units that didn't flicker unless the batteries were dying, and I'd personally swapped half of them 4 months ago. They had another year minimum before they needed service. The lights flickered again. Longer this time. Went almost completely dark before coming back up. In that half-second of darkness, I heard something. Faint. Deeper in the corridor. Scraping. Then the lights came back, and it was gone. Chandler heard it too. "What the fuck was that?" "Don't know. Maybe we keep going." I didn't wait for him to argue. I followed the footprints forward, and after a second I heard him coming behind me, breathing a little harder now. The corridor bent left. The prints stayed with it. And then I saw the door. Narrow. Metal. Gray paint over old steel. Set into the limestone wall on the right side with a frame that looked newer than the door itself. I knew this door. It was in Willow's files. Service access point 17, locked from both sides. Led to a maintenance stairwell that connected to the lower historic root sections. The footprints led straight to it. I stopped 3 feet away and stared. There was a keypad mounted next to the door handle. Black plastic, numeric buttons, LED indicator light currently showing red. That keypad wasn't park standard. Park doors used keycards or physical keys, had for years. The keypad setup was newer, aftermarket maybe. Someone had installed it and I hadn't been told. That happened sometimes. Pearson's people did upgrades without routing through maintenance, but usually I heard about it eventually. "Is that supposed to be there?" Chandler asked. "Don't know." "Can you open it?" I stepped closer. The keypad had wear on certain buttons. 1, 4, 7, 9. The plastic was shinier there where fingers hit most often. 4-digit code, probably. Maybe 6. I didn't have the code. Willow's keycard might not work on a keypad system. I could try forcing it, but the door frame looked solid and my ribs weren't up for that kind of work. I reached out anyway. My hand moved toward the keypad and my fingers just tapped. 1, 7, 4, 9. I didn't think about it. Didn't plan the sequence. My hand just knew. The LED blinked green. The lock clicked. I pulled my hand back and stared at it. "Nice," Chandler said behind me. "How'd you know the code?" I didn't. That was the problem. I'd never used this door, never been given a code for it. Didn't even know it had a keypad until 30 seconds ago, but my fingers knew the sequence. Moved through it smooth and automatic. Muscle memory. That bothered me more than if the door had stayed locked. I pushed it open. The hinges moved quiet. Too quiet. Someone had maintained them recently. Beyond the door, narrow stairwell. Concrete steps heading down. Metal railing bolted to the wall on the left side, and new wiring running along the ceiling in plastic conduit. At the top of the stairs, mounted to the wall where anyone coming up would walk right into its view, a security camera, cheap model, black plastic dome, single red LED underneath blinking slow and steady. Not park issue. We didn't have cameras in service corridors. Too much cost for areas the public never saw. Someone else installed this. Someone who wanted to know who came through that door. Chandler saw it too. Is that a camera? Yeah. Who put that there? Don't know. He looked at me. Should we... are we supposed to be on camera right now? Probably not. But we were already here. Door was open. And those footprints led somewhere. I stepped through onto the landing. My boots scraped concrete. The stairwell smelled like damp stone and something else. Chemical. Cleaning solution, maybe. Chandler hesitated in the doorway. Leo, man, this feels wrong. It was wrong. All of it. The keypad I shouldn't know. The camera that shouldn't exist. The wiring that wasn't in any maintenance log I'd ever seen. But 3 people were missing, and their trail led here. You can go back, I said. Leave the door open. I'll be up in 10 minutes. He stood there another few seconds. Then he stepped through and pulled the door shut behind him. The lock clicked. We both looked at it. Can we get back out? Chandler asked. I didn't know. I hoped the keypad worked from both sides. The camera blinked above us, recording everything, sending it somewhere. I looked down the stairwell. The steps dropped into darkness past where the new wiring ended and the light couldn't reach. Stay close, I said. Then I started down. I could have backed out. Should have. Probably. The stairs kept going down and I kept following them, one hand on the railing, the other holding my flashlight, even though there was still some light from the wiring overhead. My ribs pulled with each step and my knee didn't love the angle, but I didn't stop. Chandler stayed close behind me. I could hear his breathing and the scrape of his boots on concrete. I told myself I could turn around any time. Walk back up. Tell Willow this was beyond maintenance scope and she needed to escalate it through official channels. File a report. Get search and rescue involved properly. Get federal investigators if the camera and keypad meant what I thought they meant. That was the smart play. Except official responses create records. Records get filed and copied and sent up chains of command. Someone reads them and decides they're interesting. Then the black SUVs show up at night to collect whatever I've tagged, and sometimes they ask questions about how I found it and what I saw and whether anyone else knows. I've done 11 pickups in 3 years. Every single one, same vehicles, same lack of identification, same instructions to forget the coordinates after handoff. I didn't want to be the subject this time instead of the contractor. So I kept walking down. The wiring ended about 20 steps down. After that, it was just my flashlight beam and Chandler's headlamp cutting through the dark. The air got colder. I could see my breath. 30 steps. 40. The stairs finally ended at a landing with smooth concrete and a doorway cut into raw limestone. No door in the frame. Just an opening into a passage beyond. I stopped at the threshold and swept my light across what was inside. Wide passage. Maybe 15 feet across, 10 feet high. Concrete ceiling ribs running overhead at regular intervals, thick and industrial. They looked like something you'd see in a bunker or a bomb shelter. Not a natural cave formation. Not CCC work either. I've seen plenty of their stonework, and this wasn't it. The walls were limestone, but someone had poured concrete footings along the base and patched sections higher up with newer cement that didn't match the color or texture of the older work. The patches were clean, recent. I stepped through. Chandler followed, his headlamp swinging left and right. The passage ran straight for maybe 50 feet before bending out of sight. Utility lights hung from the ceiling ribs every 20 feet, same battery-powered LED units as the corridor above, but these were all on and steady. No flickering. I walked forward slowly, scanning everything. 10 feet in, I spotted the pallets. 4 of them, stacked too high on the right side of the passage. Shrink-wrapped cases of bottled water, the cheap kind you buy in bulk at warehouse stores. The plastic wrap was intact but dusty. Past the pallets, against the left wall, I saw 3 red medical waste bins, the heavy-duty kind with biohazard symbols and foot pedal lids. They were closed. I didn't open them. Chandler stopped next to the water pallets. "What the hell is this?" "Worksite," I said. "For what?" I didn't answer because I didn't know, but someone had brought supplies down here. Someone had poured concrete and run wiring and installed lights and cameras. Someone had been working in a section of the cave that wasn't on any tour map, behind locked doors with keypads I shouldn't know the code to. I kept walking. More equipment came into view as I rounded the bend. A folding table with 2 metal chairs. A rolling tool chest, the kind mechanics use with drawers closed. A generator, Honda portable model, sitting silent with the fuel cap on. No people. No sound except our boots and breathing. I swept my light across the ceiling and walls, looking for more cameras. Didn't see any, but that didn't mean they weren't there. Chandler caught up to me. "Leo, we need to get out of here and call someone." "Yeah," I said. I didn't move. The passage continued ahead into darker sections where the utility lights either weren't installed or weren't working. I could see the edge of another pallet, something large covered with a tarp, and a man. I stopped. He was sitting maybe 40 feet ahead, just past the last working light. Rolling office chair. His back was to us, but I could see his arms pulled behind the chair and his ankles taped to the chair legs with silver duct tape. Dark pants, light-colored shirt. Not moving. I brought my flashlight up and walked forward fast, ignoring the pull in my ribs. Chandler said something behind me, but I wasn't listening. I got within 10 feet and the man's head turned. Not all the way around. Just enough that I could see the side of his face in my light. Swollen, split lip, bruising across the cheekbone, salt and pepper hair messed up, pale hazel eyes blinking against my flashlight beam. Oscar Pearson, my supervisor, the guy who'd been asking Willow about missing equipment yesterday, the guy who smiled while setting traps. He was tied to a rolling chair in an unmapped passage under Mammoth Cave with his face beaten and his ankles duct-taped and his hands behind his back. He saw me and made a sound. Relief, maybe. Desperation. "Harris," he said. His voice came out rough and thick. Jesus, thank God. I stopped walking, kept my light on him. Chandler moved up beside me and sucked in a breath. "Holy shit, is that—" "Pearson," I said. "We have to help him." Chandler started forward. I put my hand out and caught his shoulder. "Wait." Pearson's eyes tracked to Chandler, then back to me. "Please. You have to get me out of here. They grabbed me. I was trying to document—" He stopped, swallowed, winced. "There's illegal activity under the park. I found evidence. I was going to take it to federal investigators, but they grabbed me before I could get out." His words came fast. Panicked, he pulled against whatever was holding his hands behind the chair, and the whole thing rocked slightly. "Who grabbed you?" I asked. "I don't know. 2 men. Masks. They hit me and dragged me down here and tied me up." He looked at Chandler again. "Please, we need to go. They could come back." Chandler pulled against my hand. "Leo, come on." I didn't let go. I stepped closer to Pearson, keeping my light on him, and looked at his hands. They were zip-tied behind the chair. I could see the white plastic loop around both wrists. pulled snug but not cutting into the skin. His fingers were relaxed. No rope burns, no blood, no dirt. Too clean. I looked at his ankles. Silver duct tape wrapped around both legs and the chair supports. Maybe 6 or 7 loops each. Neat. Even. The kind of careful you do when you have time and you're not in a hurry. The tape ends were tucked under, not ripped. I crouched down despite my ribs and looked at the floor around the chair. Concrete. Clean. No scuff marks. No signs of a struggle. Pearson watched me. "Harris, what are you doing? We need to move." I stood up, looked at his face again. The swelling was real. The split lip was real, but the bruising looked surface level. No deep tissue damage. No swelling around the eyes or nose that would come from the kind of beating that splits a lip that badly. Staged. The word landed in my head and stuck. This was staged. I took a step back. Pearson's expression changed. Still desperate, but something else underneath. Calculation, maybe. "Harris," he said quietly. "I know you don't trust me. That's fine. But 3 people are missing, and I found out why. There's something down here, something they're hiding. I tried to stop it, and this is what happened." He pulled against the zip tie again. "You can leave me here if you want, but at least tell someone where I am." Chandler looked at me. "Leo?" I didn't answer. I was thinking about the keypad. About my fingers knowing the code without me knowing why. About the camera recording us. About Pearson asking Willow about missing equipment yesterday. And now Pearson tied to a chair today in a passage that shouldn't exist. About how convenient it was that we found him. I opened my mouth to say something. A hiss slid out of the dark behind Pearson. Long, wet, not mechanical, not wind through a crack. Organic. I swung my flashlight toward the sound, and the beam cut past Pearson's chair into the section of passage beyond where the utility lights ended. Something moved. Tall, thin, wrong. It was standing between 2 limestone pillars maybe 30 feet back, just at the edge where my light started to fade. The shape didn't make sense. Too tall, proportions off. It moved sideways, smooth and fluid, and I saw limbs that bent at angles that weren't right. The hiss came again. Chandler's headlamp beam joined mine, both of us lighting up the same section of passage. The shape stopped moving. It stood there, watching. I couldn't see details. Just the silhouette, just the wrongness. Pearson went completely still in his chair. His breathing stopped. The shape tilted its head. Then it stepped forward into better light. I backed up. Didn't think about it much, just moved. Chandler matched me step for step, his headlamp swinging wild across the ceiling. The thing in the darkness tilted its head again, and I didn't wait to see what it did next. I grabbed Chandler's sleeve and pulled him toward the stairwell. "Move," I said. He moved. We hit the passage bend, and I shoved him ahead of me. My knee screamed, and my ribs felt like someone was twisting them, but I kept going. The generator was still there, the folding table, the medical waste bins with their biohazard symbols, everything exactly where we'd seen it 2 minutes ago. Behind us, I heard something scrape against stone. Long and deliberate. Chandler reached the doorway first and hit the stairs at a run. I was right behind him. My boots slammed concrete, and every step sent a fresh jolt through my left side, but I didn't slow down. Chandler's headlamp lit the stairs ahead in jerky bursts. 20 steps, 30. The new wiring appeared along the ceiling, and I knew we were close. Then the door at the top slammed shut. The sound punched through the stairwell, metal on metal. A hard, flat bang that echoed down and hit us twice. Chandler stopped so fast I almost ran into him again. He looked up at the closed door, breathing hard, then looked back at me. "Did you—" "No," I said. I pushed past him and took the last 10 steps 2 at a time. My knee buckled on the landing, but I caught myself on the railing and didn't go down. The door was right there. Same gray paint. Same handle. The keypad next to it still showed a red LED. I grabbed the handle and pulled. Nothing. I pulled harder, threw my shoulder into it. The door didn't move, didn't rattle, didn't give even a millimeter. Chandler came up behind me. "Try the code." I punched in 1749. The LED stayed red. "Shit," Chandler said. I crouched down and ran my hand along the door frame. The metal felt wrong, too smooth, too warm. I pulled out my flashlight and aimed it at the seam where the door met the frame. There wasn't a seam. The gap was gone, filled in with something that looked like fresh weld beads running the entire height of the frame, top to bottom, continuous. The metal was still warm to the touch. "It's welded," I said. Chandler leaned in close. "What?" "The frame. Someone welded it shut." "That's not possible. We just came through 5 minutes ago." I stood up. My ribs were on fire. "I know." Chandler grabbed the handle himself and yanked on it. Then he kicked the door 3 times, hard. His boot left scuff marks on the gray paint, but the door didn't budge. "Hey!" he shouted. "Hey! We're stuck in here. Someone open the door." His voice bounced off the concrete and came back at us. No one answered. I caught his arm. "Stop. We need to stop," I said again, quieter. He stopped, looked at me. His face was pale under the headlamp and his eyes were too wide. "We're locked in," he said. "Yeah. What do we do?" I didn't answer. I was listening. Something clicked in the walls, faint but steady. 3 clicks, pause, 3 clicks, pause. Too rhythmic for water dripping, too regular for settling stone. Chandler heard it too. "What is that?" "I don't know." "Bats?" "No." The clicking continued. Same pattern, same intervals. It sounded deliberate, purposeful, the kind of thing you'd use to mark time or send a signal. From down the stairs, past the doorway into the passage, I heard Pearson make a sound. Not a word. Just a strained noise, somewhere between a grunt and a laugh. I turned and looked down the stairwell. Chandler's headlamp followed my gaze. Pearson was still sitting in the chair where we'd left him, hands zip-tied behind him, ankles taped. But he was smiling now, wide enough that it split his lip worse and a thin line of blood ran down his chin. "The cave doesn't belong to the park anymore," he said. His voice carried up the stairs, clear and calm. No panic, no fear. I didn't move. "You want to tell me what that means?" I said. Pearson tilted his head back and laughed, short and sharp. "You've been useful, Leo. More than you know." Chandler looked at me. "You know this guy?" "He's my supervisor," I said. "He doesn't look supervised." Pearson kept talking. "Those night pickups you've been doing, black SUVs, crates labeled geological equipment. You thought you were working for Interior, right? Some off-book recovery unit?" I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You weren't," Pearson said. "You were working for us. Every tagged object, every retrieval, every coordinate you logged and forgot, all of it fed straight back here." The clicking in the walls continued. 3 clicks, pause, 3 clicks. "You're lying," I said. "Am I?" Pearson leaned forward as much as the zip ties allowed. "How many times have you been down to sub-level access points in the past 6 months? 12? 15? How many keypads have you opened without thinking about it?" I thought about the door upstairs, the way my fingers had moved on their own. 1749. No hesitation. Like I'd done it 100 times before. But I hadn't, or I had and didn't remember. Pearson saw something change in my face. "There it is. You're starting to get it." Chandler looked between us. "Get what?" I ignored him. My brain was working too fast and everything felt sharp and wrong. The keypads, the doors, the muscle memory I shouldn't have. Someone had trained me. Not with a manual or a briefing, with repetition. Over and over until my hands knew the codes without my head being involved. Pavlov's dog. Ring the bell, Get the food, open the door, tag the object, forget the location. I'd been conditioned. "You son of a bitch," I said. Pearson's smile got wider. Blood dripped off his chin onto his shirt. "You were perfect for it, already cleared, already isolated, already willing to do the work and not ask questions. All we had to do was make sure you kept opening the right doors at the right times." The clicking stopped. Chandler pulled out a folding knife from his pocket. "I'm cutting him loose." "Don't," I said. "We need to get out of here, and he knows." "Don't touch him." But Chandler was already moving. He went down the stairs fast and crossed to Pearson's chair. I started after him, but my knee gave out on the third step, and I had to grab the railing. "Chandler, stop!" He didn't stop. He flicked the knife open and sliced through the zip ties around Pearson's wrists. 2 quick cuts. The plastic fell away. Pearson brought his hands around front slow, rubbed his wrists, looked up at Chandler and smiled. "Thank you," he said. Chandler crouched down and started cutting the duct tape around Pearson's ankles. "Can you walk? We need to find another way out." "I can walk," Pearson said. The last loop of tape came free. Pearson stood up, wobbled a little, put a hand on Chandler's shoulder like he needed the support. Then his posture changed, straightened, locked in. His other hand went into his pocket and came out holding something small and black. A remote. Slim. Plastic. 1 red button on top. I was halfway down the stairs. "Chandler, move." Chandler looked up at me, confused. Pearson pressed the button. A sharp smell hit me immediately. Clean, chemical. Like bleach, but sharper. It rose up from the floor in a wave, and my eyes started watering before I could process what was happening. I looked down and saw mist pouring out of narrow vents cut into the concrete. Thin white streams that spread fast and low across the chamber floor. My throat burned. My eyes burned worse. Chandler stumbled backward away from Pearson, coughing, hard enough that he doubled over. The mist kept coming. It was already ankle-high and rising. I pulled my shirt up over my nose and mouth, but it didn't help much. Whatever this was, it was getting through. My lungs felt tight, my vision blurred. Pearson stood in the middle of it, not coughing, not reacting. He slipped the remote back into his pocket and looked at me through the thickening mist. "You should have stayed upstairs, Leo," he said. Chandler dropped to his knees, still coughing. His headlamp swung across the floor and lit the mist from below. I tried to move toward him, but my legs weren't working right. Everything felt slow and wrong. The stairwell behind me, the passage ahead, Pearson standing there watching. The mist climbed higher. Waist level now. My knees buckled. I went down hard on the concrete and felt something crack in my ribs. But the pain was distant, muffled. Chandler was on his side, not moving anymore. The last thing I saw before my vision went completely was Pearson walking toward us through the mist, steady and calm, like he had all the time in the world. The thing stepped into the light. I don't know what else to call it. It wasn't a person, but it was trying. It stood maybe 7 feet tall, maybe taller, with proportions that made my eyes hurt to track. Arms too long, legs bending at joints that shouldn't exist. The skin, if that's what it was, looked wet, like clay someone forgot to smooth out. Gray-white and slick, catching the overhead lights in a way that made it seem like it was still moving even when it stood still. The face was the worst part. It had eyes, a mouth, something that might have been a nose. But they didn't line up right. The eyes were too far apart, then too close, then settling somewhere in between like it couldn't decide. The mouth opened and closed without sound, lips pulling back over teeth that looked human enough except there were too many of them. And the eyes reflected, not like an animal in headlights, like something was glowing behind them. Yellow, pale and sick. The feet matched the prints we'd found in the corridor. Long, flexible, toes that bent and gripped the concrete like fingers. It tilted its head, watched us. I couldn't move. Chandler's headlamp beam stayed locked on it. I heard him breathing fast through his nose. Behind us, Pearson laughed. Not loud, just a low sound in his throat that made my skin crawl. "The mist makes them compliant," Pearson said. His voice was steady, calm, like he was explaining a process during a safety briefing. "Suppresses the panic response, keeps them cooperative. They follow instructions. Walk where they're told. Don't fight." I looked down. The white mist was still ankle-deep, still spreading. "And it learns," Pearson continued. "Every contact, every interaction. It studies movement, speech patterns, facial structure, gets a little better each time." I thought about the footprints, the drag marks, the 3 missing hikers. They hadn't run, hadn't screamed. They'd walked down here, breathing the mist, and followed that thing deeper into the cave until it didn't need them anymore. Chandler took a step forward. I grabbed his arm. "Don't." He didn't answer. His eyes were half-focused, staring at the creature. His headlamp beam drifted lower. "Chandler." Another step. He pulled against my grip, but not hard, just steady, like he was sleepwalking. I hit him, not a slap, a real punch, closed fist into his shoulder hard enough to spin him halfway around. He stumbled, blinked twice, and his eyes snapped back into focus. "What the—" "Stay behind me." I yanked my shirt up over my nose and mouth. It didn't help much. The mist still burned my throat, but maybe it bought me a few seconds. I pulled Chandler backward toward the pallets stacked with bottled water. My knee screamed. My ribs felt like someone was driving nails through them. I didn't care. The creature took another step forward. Smooth. Fluid. Its head tilted the other way. Chandler's pack was still on his shoulders. I shoved him down behind the nearest pallet and dug through the main pocket. Headlamp, batteries, protein bar, first aid kit. There. A spare headlamp. Cheap plastic. 3 settings. I clicked it to strobe. The light flickered fast, white bursts every half second. I held it up over the pallet edge. The creature stopped. Its head jerked. The eyes, those wrong yellow glowing eyes, tracked the light, then lost it, then tracked again. It took a step back. "It needs steady input," I said, mostly to myself. "Can't process interruptions." Pearson was moving. I caught the motion in my peripheral vision. He was walking toward the left wall, past the folding table, heading for something I couldn't see. I set the strobing headlamp on top of the pallet, angled toward the creature, and went after him. My knee buckled on the 3rd step. I didn't stop, just pushed off the concrete with my hands and kept going. Pearson reached the wall. There was a panel there. Gray metal. Flush-mounted. He pulled it open. I tackled him from the side. We went down hard. My shoulder took most of the impact and something tore deep in the joint. Hot pain flooded down my arm. Pearson rolled with it, came up on top, and drove an elbow into my ribs. The cracked ones. I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize. Pearson fought like someone trained. Efficient. No wasted movement. He got a knee on my chest and reached into his pocket. The remote. I bit his hand. Not a nibble. I clamped down on the meat between his thumb and index finger and felt skin break. Pearson shouted. The remote hit the concrete and skittered 3 feet away. I shoved him off, rolled, and grabbed it. My shoulder didn't want to work anymore. I used my left hand. The creature was closer now. Maybe 20 feet. Moving toward the strobing light like it was trying to figure out what it meant. Chandler was still behind the pallet. He looked pale, shaking. I shoved the remote into my pocket and pulled out the evidence bag. The carbide lamp, dented, blackened, 80 years old. I twisted the bottom reservoir off. The carbide inside was old but still dry, gray-white chunks that smelled sharp and chemical. Pearson was getting up. Blood dripped from his hand. I grabbed him by the collar, yanked him close, and shoved carbide into his mouth. He gagged, tried to spit. I held his jaw shut. "Bite down," I said. He didn't. I pulled out my lighter. Cheap Bic, half empty. I flicked it once. The flame caught. Pearson's eyes went wide. He bit down. The carbide reacted with the moisture in his mouth. Not an explosion. Just a brief, sharp hiss and a flicker of heat. Pearson jerked back, coughing and spitting white chunks across the concrete. The creature recoiled. Fast, sudden. It pulled back 10 feet in one smooth motion and pressed itself against the limestone wall. Fire. It didn't like fire. Or maybe heat. Or the chemical reaction. I didn't know and didn't care. I looked around. The generator was 15 feet away. The medical waste bins, the folding table, and against the far wall a red cylinder with a black hose and nozzle. CO2 fire suppression. Standard equipment for electrical fires in confined spaces. I ran for it. My knee gave out halfway there. I went down on my hands, pushed up, kept moving. The cylinder was heavy, maybe 30 pounds. I dragged it back toward the pallets, popped the safety pin, and opened the valve. White gas flooded the floor, heavier than air. It spread fast, rolling across the concrete in a thick wave that pushed the mist back and thinned it out. Chandler coughed, hard. Then again, his eyes focused. "Leo, what? Get up." He stood. His legs shook, but he stayed upright. The creature was moving again, slow, cautious. Its head swiveled between me and Chandler and the strobing light still flashing on top of the pallet. I grabbed the strobing headlamp, shoved it under a rolling tool cart, and pushed. The cart moved, slow. The wheels squeaked. The creature tracked the light, followed it. "Run," I told Chandler. We ran. Past Pearson, who was still on his knees coughing, past the folding table, past the generator. There was a side passage, narrow. I'd seen it earlier but ignored it because it didn't lead toward the stairs. Now I saw the arrows. Fresh paint, white, pointing down the passage toward something I couldn't see. I didn't care where it led. Anywhere was better than here. Chandler got there first. I followed. The passage bent left, then right. The ceiling dropped to maybe 7 feet. The walls closed in, and then I saw it. A hatch, metal, set into the floor, with a wheel lock. I dropped to my knees and grabbed the wheel. It didn't move. Chandler knelt next to me. Together, we pulled. The wheel turned, slow, grinding, then faster. The hatch popped open. Darkness below, and the smell of oil and dust. A maintenance lift shaft. Ladder rungs bolted to the wall every 12 inches going down into nothing. "Up," I said. Chandler looked at me. "Up," I said again. "We climb up." He nodded and dropped through the hatch. I heard his boots hit rungs. Then he started climbing. I followed. My shoulders screamed with every pull. My ribs felt like they were grinding against each other. I didn't stop. Rung after rung, hand over hand. Chandler above me. The hatch still open below. I heard something down there. Scraping. Wet. I climbed faster. Chandler's breathing was ragged. His palms were bleeding. I could see it on the rungs. Dark smears. "Keep going." He did. I don't know how long we climbed. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then Chandler stopped. "There's another hatch. Open it." He pushed. I heard metal scrape metal. Then a grunt. Then a hard shove. The hatch flew open and pale light spilled down. Night air. Chandler pulled himself through. I followed and collapsed on cold concrete. We were in a storage building, maintenance yard. I recognized the smell. Diesel and old wood and fertilizer. Chandler was on his hands and knees, coughing. His palms were split open. Blood dripped onto the concrete. I sat up. My shoulder was useless. The joint felt like it was full of broken glass. Outside I heard sirens, not park vehicles, county, And overhead, a helicopter. The steady thump of rotors. Someone had already kicked off a containment response. I stood, took 3 steps, pushed open the storage building door. Gravel service road, trees, darkness, and headlights coming fast. A truck, Park Service green. It stopped 20 feet away. The driver's door opened. Willow stepped out with her weapon drawn. She swept the area, saw me, saw Chandler behind me, and lowered the gun. What happened? Pearson was involved, I said. My voice didn't sound right, too flat. There's something under the park. It uses mist, pumped through vents, makes people compliant. And there's a creature, mimics human features, learns from contact. Willow stared at me for 3 seconds. Then she holstered her weapon and opened the back door of the truck. Get in. Chandler climbed in first. I followed. Willow drove without headlights, fast, down the service road, through a gap in the fence I didn't know existed, onto a fire access trail. She didn't speak. Neither did I. After maybe 10 minutes, we hit pavement, a county road, and ahead, roadblocks, orange cones, reflective vests, county vehicles with light bars. Willow slowed and stopped. A deputy approached. 30s, sturdy build, short light brown hair. Lewis Harrison. I'd seen him at a park incident 2 years ago. He looked at Willow, then at me and Chandler in the back. Ranger Mercado. Deputy Harrison. You got 2 coming out? Maintenance contractor and a seasonal guide. They were doing a lighting repair when the alarm went off. Harrison looked at me, then at Chandler's bloody hands. They need medical? Staged ambulance is fine. Harrison nodded and waved us through. We rolled past the roadblock. Another 100 yards down, an ambulance sat on the shoulder with its back doors open. A woman in EMS gear stood next to it. Dark hair and tight braids. Focused eyes. Jasmine Gross. Willow stopped. Jasmine walked over. Injuries? Lacerations and possible shoulder separation, Willow said. Jasmine opened the back door and looked at me and Chandler. Can you walk? Yeah, I said. We got out. Jasmine led us to the ambulance and had us sit on the rear bumper. She cleaned Chandler's hands first. He didn't say anything, just stared at the pavement. Then she looked at my shoulder. This needs imaging. I know. She wrapped it anyway, tight. It helped a little. By morning, the park announced a hazardous air incident and closed all entrances. Historic route, wild cave tour, everything. Oscar Pearson was reported missing. My contract phone stopped working. I tried it twice. Dead screen, like it had never existed. But my ribs were still cracked. My shoulder was still wrecked, and Chandler still had scars on his palms that would never fully fade. It was real. I didn't end what was under the park. I knew that. I just disrupted it. The cost was permanent damage. A compromised friend in Willow. And Chandler, who now knew what shouldn't be there. I sat in my truck in the empty visitor center lot 3 days later and looked at the closed gates. Somewhere below, in the dark, it was still there. Waiting